First thing first, let's not skip a step. We are not talking about profitability, not necessarily profitability, but at least revenue should start coming in at that stage. Very importantly, at every single stage, maybe I can take the liberty of saying for the initial 8 years, 10 years for any startups, don't let go of your compliance.
Do you think you have an unfair advantage because you have already 80 portfolio companies, so there will be a lot of synergies between themselves? Yeah.
For every new company that comes in our portfolio, they are rest assured कि ये 80 companies उनका audience है ही.
Yes.
And I can flaunt it by saying that I've been a part of and I've witnessed the revolution which has actually come into the Indian capital markets.
Okay.
Startup है, idea है, innovative idea है, लेकिन company भी form नहीं की है. And that is the time when an incubator is really required. That is the time when an incubator is expected to provide a lot of ground level support, lot of basic support to any startups that are there with them. Our core strength, our core positioning is that of an accelerator. I can say with a lot of conviction that every single company we have invested in. So we have a skin in the game in every single company of ours. हमारा सोचना यह है कि companies हैं, startup companies हैं, let them concentrate at best on what they are doing, what they are trying to build up. Okay. So though we started off perhaps at the seed stage or so, but we take them all the way up to a growth stage or a series kind of a round construct.
Tell me 3 points which founders should keep in mind while pitching to Marwari Catalyst.
So most important thing was
Hello viewers, welcome to Sign Up Startup powered by Bharat Valley Incubator and Accelerator Private Limited. So in this episode, we have Mr. Nikhil Gupta, who is CEO and fund manager of Marwari Catalyst Fund. It is a SEBI registered Cat 1 fund and having an asset of 100 crores. They are currently managing 80 plus startups, so you can imagine the impact today we are having in our podcast. Nikhil has been a game changer for many startups and especially helping them in unlocking new opportunities and exploring cross-border markets. So let's dive straightly to the practical tips which will help you in scaling your business. If you are new into the channel, then hit the subscribe button. And if you want to grow in a faster manner, then we have our community. You can join the community and get the exclusive access to the premium tools, masterclasses, and some exclusive resources. I'll put the link in description. So let's enjoy the podcast. Hi Nikhil, welcome to our show. So how are you feeling today?
Oh, it feels great, Ashish. I think it's a great experience to be, and how better can it get than talking about the most preferred and the favorite topic, which is the flavor of the season, which is the startup ecosystem, and that's exactly where I come in. Many thanks to you and your entire team for having me on board, and yeah, it's a great experience talking about it for sure.
So I will just tell you, there are a lot of requests from our viewers and community that we want Nikhil Gupta on this show. So let's start with your journey and how you have ended up with Marwari Catalyst, if you can throw some light on that.
So it's been a very interesting journey for me, Ashish, right? So I typically, like any other commerce graduate, that's where I began my journey. And again, I come from a very typical Marwari family. So being the first person in the family to do a job, and उस time पे banking was the most preferred sector. Even today, it is in fact.
Yeah.
So that's how I started my journey. I was a part of. I began my journey with retail banking, and I started off from custody services for Standard Chartered Bank. So the first initiative or the first job itself was with a multinational. To spend almost about 13, 14 years into wealth management between Standard Chartered Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank. So 97, 98 is when I started my career, and that was the time when dematerialization had just come in.
Yeah.
Right. So to that extent, I can take the liberty of very on a good note, and I can flaunt it by saying that I've been a part of and I've witnessed the revolution which has actually come into the Indian capital markets. That's where I started my journey. And my migration to corporate finance actually happened when I moved to a family office.
Okay.
So from retail wealth management to family office, and then post that I've been on this side of it. I've been in the alternate space for equal number of years, almost over 13, 14 years in this space, where I've been a part of an angel fund. I've been a part of a couple of angel networks, where I've led post-investment, investment desk for angel networks as well.
Okay.
Now you're at Marwari Catalyst.
Okay.
So that's the journey. Quickly, I did mention in terms of where I started from and where I am now. At Marwari Catalyst, in fact, I play two roles.
Okay.
One is I lead strategy and alliances for Marwari Catalyst, both at the principal level and the portfolio level, as director strategy and alliances. And the second role that I play at Marwari Catalyst is I'm the CEO and the fund manager for Marwari Catalyst Fund.
So great. So now next we will move to our segments. This is not in season 1. I would just want to mention these are the new segments which we have introduced in season 2. So let's start with Fab 5 segment. So I will tell you about this segment. So we have made a survey in our community and amongst our viewers where they have asked, they have voted for the questions they really wanted to know about. Okay. So let's start this segment with the first question. What are the most critical steps founders should take in the early stage?
So I'll just take a little bit of a pushback over here in terms of explaining, Ashish, what are the different stages? Because the moment we try to address that, what are the steps a founder needs to take, we also need to understand what are the different stages which are there usually in the startup ecosystem.
Yeah.
So the entire process or the entire hierarchy structure in the startup ecosystem, in an ideal situation, is meant to begin with the incubation stage,
Correct.
which is a very, very early stage. Or for all you know, it could be as early as even the company is not formed.
Okay.
Startup है, idea है, innovative idea है, लेकिन company भी form नहीं की है.
Okay.
Right? So it is as basic as that. And that is the time when an incubator is really required. That is the time when an incubator is expected to provide a lot of ground level support, a lot of basic support to any startups that are there with them. Right? That's the incubation stage, or the incubators come in at that stage.
Yes.
The next best natural move for a startup moving out from an incubator is to move to an accelerator. All right? That is exactly where Marwari Catalyst also comes in. Because our core strength, our core positioning is that of an accelerator.
Okay.
All right? Marwari Catalyst as an accelerator actually adds value or tries to add value on both commercial front and non-commercial front for each and every single portfolio company of ours. Or I should be saying, each and every single company that we will identify or we would wish to kind of take them on board as a part of our portfolio. Okay. As an accelerator, it covers areas like we take pride in saying that we invest in every single company that we accelerate. Right. Not many accelerators, not just in India, but globally also follow that kind of a thesis. We do that.
Okay.
And out of these 70, 80 companies that I'm currently managing in my portfolio, I can say with a lot of conviction that every single company we have invested in. So we have a skin in the game in every single company of ours.
Okay.
A. B. We would want to off-shoulder all functional responsibilities from our portfolio company. हमारा सोचना यह है कि companies है, startup companies है, let them concentrate at best on what they are doing, what they are trying to build up. Let them not budge from there. Let them not kind of get defocused on functional responsibilities, compliances, regulations, technology. All of those things is something which we volunteer to provide as a support function to our company.
Okay.
Thirdly, as an accelerator, it is very important that we do a lot of market making and business making for our portfolio companies or a set of startups.
Okay.
How can we do that? We conduct a very exhaustive 3-month program or 3 to 4 months program, which covers up all aspects that a company wishes to know about.
Okay.
So that's a phase. That's the most crucial phase. In fact, so something which kind of disturbs us at Marwari Catalyst is that if at all a company or a startup company which is supposedly there in our accelerator program, if they miss out on any particular session, then that disturbs us a lot.
Okay.
Because that is the whole objective of an accelerator, of running an accelerator program, right? So that is the third area where we add value. And whilst I'm doing all of these things, the objective is to prepare each and every single company of mine for a larger interface.
Okay.
Now that could be again commercial and non-commercial. When I'm saying commercial, we prepared each and every single company of ours for a larger round construct.
Okay.
So though we started off perhaps at the seed stage or so, but we take them all the way up to a growth stage or a series kind of a round construct. Okay. So that's the journey which we wish to cover for them.
Right.
I'm not averse to topping up my investments also. We are very keen to look at larger investments in companies that are performing well. from our own set of portfolio companies. Kind of also creates a competitive edge amongst themselves,
Yeah.
right? To deliver and to look at the larger investments. And on non-commercial front, all sorts of forward integrations, synergies, collaborations, market penetrations, newer geographical regions. So when I'm saying newer geographical regions, we work very aggressively in cross-border regions also.
Okay.
And I talk more about that in detail.
Yeah.
But then, yes, that is one area which also is not ignored at our end.
Okay.
Okay. So these are the 3, 4, 5 areas how an accelerator can actually add value to a startup company. And then, of course, once all of that is done, which means the initial 2, 3 years is taken care of, then we prepare them for a larger interface with perhaps angel networks, funds, micro funds, family offices, all of those things. ये जो शुरू के जो 3 साल होते हैं 4 साल होते हैं, this is very crucial for a startup company.
Correct.
Right? So incubation to an accelerator is, so I often tell my startup companies or my portfolio companies or companies whom I interact with, keep, let's not try and skip a step. There's a certain process which is validated and accepted by the ecosystem. Let's try and follow that.
Yeah.
Rather than look out for shortcuts. Like it is rightly said, there is no success when it comes to shortcuts, or there's no shortcut to success. That actually holds good in the startup ecosystem also. So let's follow a process, incubate hote hain, accelerate hote hain, and then let's look at larger investments. So I think the most important steps or the critical steps, crucial steps which any founder should be taking is, like I said, first thing first, let's not skip a step.
Okay.
So it is important that every single founder looks at or considers at what stage they are themselves present. Let's say, for example, if a company has been at an idea stage, for example. Okay. So it is important that the objective or the aspiration for any founder is to take it from there to the next step, which will mean actually the entire process of getting it validated in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because only then larger players will start looking at it. And I'm not talking just purely from investment or fundraising perspective, but otherwise also acceptability होना बहुत ज़रूरी है, validation होना बहुत ज़रूरी है. So पहला सबसे important crucial step founder के लिए ये है कि अगर idea stage पे है, for them to get it validated, for them to get it rolling or get them actually on the floor. Okay. So पूरा focus, पूरा concentration वो step पे होना चाहिए.
Okay.
Thankfully, so I'm also trying to peg this to an incubation stage. So when we're talking about an incubation stage, there are a lot of government grants and subsidies also available when it comes to fundraising or funding or investments being the fuel to the entire engine. So for that initial stage, there are a lot of government grants and subsidies which are available.
Okay.
They need not really go all out for fundraising at an early stage. Okay. Post that comes an accelerator stage. Accelerator stage is perhaps after the initial 1.5 years, 2 years time, when they are expected to go through an accelerator phase.
Okay.
At that time, the role of an accelerator is to prepare them for a larger interface and entering into the growth phase. So it is a pre-growth stage when an accelerator actually comes in. That is the time when the founder needs to be very cautious of the fact कि अभी validate तो हो गया ecosystem में, अब numbers build up होने ज़रूरी है.
Yes.
Now traction needs to be built up. So every focus of a startup founder should be towards reaching out or towards outreach as an exercise.
Yes.
Getting it all the more validated, getting it, if it's a product, for example, there needs to be numbers should start coming in at that stage. Revenue should start coming in. We are not talking about profitability, not necessarily profitability, but at least revenue should start coming in at that stage. Right? Post that would then be a growth stage. So when we're talking about entering into a growth stage, then that's the time when we're actually looking at scalability.
Okay.
So the founder at that point of time probably should focus on areas or should concentrate on scaling it to larger regions, not just domestic, but if there's an appetite in the international market, it could be for cross-border regions also.
Yeah.
And similarly, reaching out to larger investors also.
Okay.
So, and whilst all of these things that a founder is doing, very importantly, at every single stage, maybe I can take the liberty of saying for the initial 8 years, 10 years for any startups, don't let go of your compliance, of your processes. That is very, very important. Regardless of what stage the startup is, compliance is something which cannot be ignored at any single point of time.
So, Nikhil, my next question will be, when should a startup consider raising funds? ये बहुत popular चीज़ है, and everyone nowadays is looking for, just startup करना है तो fundraise का ही वो सपना देखता है. So what is the ideal time?
Ashish, there is no ideal time for fundraise. And I'll quickly tell the flip side also that fundraise is a non-stoppable kind of an exercise. It has to continue. मतलब आप IPO भी अगर चले जाओगे या पब्लिक लिस्टिंग भी कर लोगे तो भी आप क्या कर रहे हो, आप लिस्टिंग करके भी आप पैसा ही रेज कर रहे हो, right? So I think I'll answer this easier in a faster way by just giving a narration over here that for us at Marwari Catalyst, if a company, if a startup is raising too frequently, perhaps it's a little alarming. Okay. But the flip side is that for a company that is not raising also, that is also alarming. क्योंकि अगर कोई कंपनी अगर रेज नहीं कर रही तो मेरे लिए वो काम नहीं कर रही है.
Equity नहीं मिलेगा.
हाँ नहीं मतलब काम ही नहीं कर रहा है क्योंकि वहाँ से या तो स्टार्टअप ये बोल रहा है कि दे आर बूटस्ट्रैप. अगर बूटस्ट्रैप कर रहे हैं तो फंड रेजिंग इज नॉट अ पार्ट ऑफ देयर एक्सरसाइज एंड उसमें भी लिमिटेशन आ जाती है. So the answer to your question would be that fundraising is a continuous exercise. It needs to be done at different stages. But the important part is that every founder needs to reach out to the right set of investors. Okay. That is very important. So identification of right investors, I think that is important.
So third question is, how important is collaboration for the growth of startups, and whether it should be only domestic collaboration or also it should be foreign and cross-border collaborations?
Can I give you some numbers over here?
Yeah, sure.
Right, from global perspective. So थोड़ा global landscape एक बार देख लेते हैं. Let's talk about Southeast Asian markets or the APAC or the Asia Pacific region. Which are the players that we have over here? Okay, in the startup space, it's Singapore.
Yeah.
It's India. It's Malaysia now. It's Vietnam, Philippines, and Indonesia largely. Okay. And China, of course. Thankfully, now India is all poised to look at becoming among the top 3 startup players, startup ecosystems to support in, not just in Asian markets, but globally. Okay. Why are these numbers coming in? And let me also tell you that between Singapore, India, Beijing, which is China, and Malaysia and Indonesia, I won't want to talk more about the Chinese market because it might create a lot of speculation. But amongst the other regions, India is among the top performing startup ecosystems today.
Okay.
And India flaunts the largest numbers of unicorns. Forget the startup ecosystem, unicorns and unicorns also. And those numbers for us are growing. I'm talking right from 2021, 22, 23, and now 24, or towards the end of 24 also. In these 3 years, 4 years, 5 years time, what India has built up is a larger ecosystem, which is much more regulated.
Yeah.
So when I'm saying much more regulated, there is a lot of opportunity for Indian companies to collaborate with offshore companies, and likewise for offshore companies to create their presence in India also. Yes. Hence, and I'm trying to answer your question by covering up the second point first, which is the need of a global collaboration. That's why let's also face the fact that every Indian company aspires to look at the global markets.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and which becomes a lot more easier when it comes by way of a good collaboration in that particular region. So, definitely global collaboration is very important for our startup ecosystem. Forget every single company. For the entire startup ecosystem to grow in India, global collaboration is very important. Okay. Now, coming back to the first point, even domestically, we have already started seeing a lot of synergies amongst the startup companies. Okay. Not only that, in fact, we have started seeing a lot of synergies and collaboration between startups on one side and mid corporates and large corporates on the other side. In fact, at Marwari Catalyst, we encourage this side of it also. We encourage all the possible mid corporates, large corporates, which are domain experts or which are industry specialists in a particular sector. We encourage them to come forward, and along with them, we are very happy to jointly run accelerator programs.
Yeah.
And definitely this is a clear-cut hint towards the fact that a collaboration is the way ahead. Yeah. I might be equipped to run an accelerator program from end to end, but for me to add value to each of my companies, it's very important that I get in a domain expert, and which can only happen by way of collaboration.
Correct.
So collaboration is very important both on domestic front as well as international.
So the next question is, what are the key factors normally investors look while making an investment?
So, why for anybody else, Ashish? I can give you my own example. What Marwari Catalyst actually looks at whilst investing or whilst identifying a startup company. See, our core identity as Marwari Catalyst is of an accelerator.
Yes.
Okay, that's where we put in a lot of effort, and that's what we enjoy doing the best. Which also means कि मेरे लिए at Marwari Catalyst ये बहुत ज़रूरी है कि until and unless a company is truly expecting or requiring an accelerator support, we will not want to look at that. For me, it's not a pure investment model. So our positioning is slightly different.
Okay.
At Marwari Catalyst, until and unless there's an accelerator support required,
Yeah.
and as against that, also accelerator support की ठीक है ज़रूरत है portfolio company को. But if I feel that I cannot add value back to them, I will still not go ahead and onboard that company. So for me, the first point on my checklist is that the company should be such that they fall in the bracket or in the requirement of an accelerator support.
Okay.
That is very important for us. I don't have a pure investment model.
Okay.
And I can take the liberty of saying that because we are an accelerator to step in. Okay. In fact, I can just elaborate a little more on that also, that with the fund also that we have on the floor now, our positioning will still continue to be of an accelerator.
Okay.
The difference would be that through the fund, we are now equipped to write larger check sizes or larger investments. But again, फिर भी जब तक उनका एक्स्ट्रा सपोर्ट की जरूरत नहीं होगी, we will not step in.
Okay.
पहली चीज. दूसरी चीज, also as an accelerator, I am not averse to any particular sector. I follow a sector agnostic approach.
Okay.
But again, the important part being over here that because I come in as an accelerator, it becomes important that I should be able to add value to their journey.
Okay.
And given my bandwidth limitations, I can only do that once at any point of time I'm focusing on 4 or 5, so to say, priority sectors that we have identified.
Okay.
तो हम 4-5 सेक्टर्स पे एक टाइम पे फोकस करते हैं और वही सेक्टर्स की कंपनीज को encourage करते हैं अप्लाई करने के लिए हमारे पास में. And obviously then we have a processes in place, due diligence is conducted, and we shortlist companies, prepare a final batch, we invest in them and we accelerate them. Okay. ये हो गया as an accelerator what we look at.
Yeah.
Going ahead from the fund perspective also, of course, the first point being that an accelerator support is required. Secondly, we will want to, and till date also, we are more often than not the first institutional participant in every single company of us.
Achha.
We have been leading rounds so far, and we would want to do that going ahead also.
Okay.
Difference खाली fund में से खाली ये आ जाएगा कि we are okay to look at co-investments also. So this is the kind of a psyche that we follow. This is the kind of a thesis that we follow at Marwari Catalyst when it comes to investment exposure.
Okay.
So Nikhil, the last question of this segment is, what are some common challenges startup face when scaling?
I think the biggest challenge that any startup faces today is either not able to raise funds on time or not getting the right support function. And more often than not, what we have observed is that both these situations arise when they have not either been incubated or accelerated. अगर आप पास का थोड़ा अगर आप हिस्ट्री देखोगे, so company which have been incubated, company which have been accelerated, they stand a fair amount of a chance to look at scalability and growth vis-a-vis companies that have either reached a growth stage directly or they've been bootstrapped and then they, in a very haphazard and unorganized way, they have looked at fundraising. Whereas the moment they go through that particular phase, then a lot of their problem points are taken care of. A lot of their gaps have been identified by the ecosystem and it has been plugged in. So that is the biggest mistake that any startup founder would make, not looking at a process behind it.
So this is the end of our Fab 5 segment and you nicely answered all the 5 questions. So now next, move to our next segment, which is a very short segment or very interesting one, where people really wants to know that what happens in, VC. So the segment name is VC Insider. And the question for today is, tell me 3 points which founders should keep in mind while pitching to Marwari Catalyst.
So most important thing while pitching into Marwari Catalyst is that they should be requiring an accelerator support. Okay, because that is the first thing first that we will be wanting to hear from the founders. That is one. Secondly, at Marwari Catalyst, we also try to identify the appetite or the greed or the hunger that every founder would be, because we need to understand the fact that we are coming in as an accelerator. I can only accelerate something which is either at a pre-growth stage or they're forcing a growth coming in. Until and unless that kind of a hunger is there from the founder, I'll not be able to scale them up. I'll not be able to accelerate them, and I don't do my job correctly if I don't do that, right? So that's why I would want to hear from from a founder in terms of on areas like how they're wanting to scale up, where they're wanting to scale up. I would love to hear from a founder what is there on their wish list.
Yeah.
It could be perhaps for the next 6 months time, 1 year's time, 3 years time, 5 years time, all of those things. Okay. I want to hear from a startup whether they're aspiring to go public, whether they're wanting to get listed on the SME segment.
Okay.
So all things said and done, the second point is the hunger from the founder's side. I want to look at that. Thirdly, very importantly, again, what is the kind of a hands-on experience that the founder is getting it or the core team is getting it? I'm not saying that would be a point where we would want to, if that is not there, we'll want to drop the company. If it's a good company, we still go ahead with it.
Yeah.
But I will also want to play the role of getting in a co-founder at that stage for that particular company.
Okay.
Because we truly believe that 1, 2, 3 founders, co-founders that are there together, and the moment they complement each one of them, it only works better for the startup company.
Yes.
Okay. So a single founder-led kind of a company is usually something which we prefer not looking at.
Okay.
We'll want to look at where there are 2 co-founders at least. And very candidly, if I tell you that it only gets better if there's a women co-founder also, because we work extensively when it comes to women empowerment and co-founders or ventures which are led by women founders and stuff.
Okay.
So these are the 3 points which a founder or a startup needs to be very cautious whilst kind of pitching into a Marwari Catalyst.
That was a great insight. So now let's move to the next segment, which is a very funny one, but very people can learn a lot of things about this. Okay. So the segment is fact versus myth. So I will ask you few questions and you have to mention whether it is a fact or a myth. So the first question is, founders with no prior startup experience struggle to raise funds.
It's a myth.
Okay.
It's not true actually, because for a first-time founder will obviously not have an experience to raise funds. Okay, and I can also say that if a founder doesn't have experience to raise funds, it does not mean that it cannot be created as a habit, as a practice. So we've seen some excellent case studies where a first-time founder has also kind of made unicorns and in India and stuff. So not necessarily a first-time founder will not be able to raise funds or faces a lot of challenges. It's a myth.
Okay. The pitch deck is more important than the team behind the startup.
Again, a myth. Because so I'll put it this way, that a pitch deck can be made proper the moment the content is there in it. Okay.
Yeah.
And amongst the content areas that we talk of, the core team or the hands-on experience that our team has is very crucial. So a pitch deck can be dependent on a good team, but not the other way around. So a good team is definitely required.
Okay. Raising more money early on guarantees faster growth for a startup.
No, so it's a myth, because not necessarily raising money early or too much of it guarantees growth. In fact, at Marwari Catalyst, we take the liberty of coming down very heavily on startup companies and telling them कि आपको अगर जरूरत नहीं है तो मत raise करो, ठीक है? Because of the fact being that we are in a space which is purely driven by equity dilution or fundraising against equity. Okay. I'm not too sure how many people understand the fact that raising by way of equity is much more expensive than raising by debt.
Correct.
Okay. So that's why it is very important that a founder needs to raise at the correct stage.
Yeah.
And how much are they raising? Because directly it is pegged to the equity which will get diluted. So all of those criteria are very important.
Okay.
So raising at the right stage is more important.
And last one is, it is very hard to approach Nikhil Gupta.
which is definitely a myth. I think I'm pretty accessible. I'm accessible on LinkedIn. I usually try to respond back to WhatsApp messages, to LinkedIn messages, to mails. And I guess all of this also comes from the fact that at Marwari Catalyst, we place a lot of importance to turnaround times, to being responsive. And so it's a myth. I'm pretty much accessible.
And I will add on to this for all our viewers that we have also approached for the first time, and within an hour he has replied back, and today we are having this podcast. So yeah, definitely it's a myth. So Nikhil, this is we have come to the end of our this podcast where we have discussed starting from the various challenges startups are having, then collaborations and few funny things in the end of the show. So thank you for joining our podcast and giving your valuable time to our viewers.
Always a pleasure, Ashish, to be a part of the ecosystem, to contribute and to add value in a best possible way. And thank you once again to you, your entire team, for having me on your channel. And look forward to many more such sessions. Thank you.
This is it for today. Stay tuned to our channel, and in next episode again we will invite our new guest who will share his knowledge, and then you can grow, build, and scale your business.